This short little routine is great as a warm-up, as a prelude to any other routines that you're doing or any other exercise you're doing. And I often include it at the start of my Pilates class just as a standing mobilisation. It gets the mind-body connection going, it switches on the stabilisers in the legs and really works on mobilising the spine as well, which is really important to get that kind of little bit of mobility in the body before you move on to other exercises. Just going to start though just by bringing it into good neutral posture. So feet hip width apart, feet parallel and toes level, so you haven't got a staggered stance. And then once you've kind of got that balance in the feet, just lifting out of the hips, standing tall, imagine something's pulling you up. And as you do that, you'll probably feel the muscles of your lower abs engage, maybe the muscles in your legs and glutes also engage. But important then to relax the shoulders down and just make sure the rib cage is not flaring too much as well. So to contain this front part of your body, and that really then switches on your abs. Draw back the head so the chin is slightly tucked. Really good, strong, active posture. We're going to start off by just doing a little bit of breathing. So from this position, take a breath in as we float the arms up and over the head. Exhale as you bring them back down by your side. Again, take a breath in. And then exhale. And one more, take a breath in. Exhale. Come back into that neutral posture. And we're going to take this into a sway. So keeping the body rigid, I'm just going to turn to the side just to demonstrate. And what I mean by that is just kind of not hinging at the hip. Just imagine that you haven't got a hinge, you haven't got a hip joint where you can kind of break that in the middle. You're a kind of a plank of wood. And we're going to come into a sway, we're going to sway the body forward. And as you do that, really feel your toes gripping into the floor, the flexors and extensors into your feet, really working. And then we're going to sway back. Keep the toes down starting, but just sway the body back so the weight comes into the heels. Just that point where you feel as though you might topple over backwards. And feel the muscles in your legs and your glutes just fire up to kind of stabilise you. And then working between those 2 points. Swaying backwards and forwards. Just connecting with the body. Really simple movement. Do 1 or 2 more. Really good for getting the mind-body connection going. And starting to fire up the stabilise in the legs. And then we're going to take it into heel raises. So next time that you come forward, I want you to come up onto your toes. Be careful not to topple forward. And don't worry if that happens. Or the other thing that can happen quite often is the ankles want to kind of sprag out to the sides. But what we're trying to do is keep the feet kind of working and coming up in parallel. So if you do feel as though your ankles want to kick out to the edge, just kind of try to hold them in the middle. And as you sway back now, you can come onto your heels and let your toes just come up, just for that kind of split moment. And then try and slow it down. So really lowering down slowly. Fine controlled movement. Next time you come up onto your toes, we're going to take this into a foot pedal. So bending one knee, drop the opposite heel down to the floor. Come back up onto your toes and then change sides. So it brings us into a foot pedal. Again, trying to keep it nice and slow and controlled. And trying to keep the hips in the middle. And by that I mean, kind of, there's a temptation here to kind of let the hips go from side to side. But what we're trying to do is hold them in the middle. Keep the hips forward and locked. Trying to isolate the movement so the hips come up together, level on each side. There'll be a little bit of movement, but trying to hold that in position. And you really feel the muscles around the lower part of the leg, around your calves, your soleus muscle, really working. 1 or 2 more. And then just lower down and just shake out the ankles, shake out the legs. Maybe circle the ankles round, point and flex. And the same on the other leg. A little bit circling, any cracking, release that. And then point and flex. I'm going to take this into a side bend, so we're going to start to work up a little bit into mobilising the spine. And we'll start with a very simple side bend. So come back into that neutral posture, feet hip width apart. Again, lift out the hips, lengthen the spine. And we're trying to get maximum distance between the top of your hips and your rib cage, which really lengthens, gets that axial extension into the spine. Relax your shoulders down, take a breath in. And on the exhale, we're going to just simple side bend. Let the hand come down the side of the leg, down towards the knee. Breathe in as you come back across the middle. Exhale on the other side. Keeping that going from side to side. Making sure that as you come across the middle, you take that inhale and reset. And again, just making sure that the hips aren't swaying from side to side. I see that sometimes. We're really trying to lock the hips in the middle by squeezing on your quads, on your thighs, squeezing on your glutes. Lateral flex of the spine. As it eases, you might be able to just let the hands come down that a little bit further, feeling the stretch into your side body on the opposite side. And one or two more, making sure that you've done the same on both sides. And then I'm going to take it into some rotation. And my favourite way of doing this is bow and arrow arms. So I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see what I mean by doing that. And relax the shoulders down. Again, stand tall, reset your posture. Take a breath in, draw the arms up, keep the shoulders down as the hands come out in front. Pause there, take another breath in. And on the exhale, I'm going to draw one elbow back as you push the opposite hand forward. And what we're trying to focus on is getting the shoulders open to the side. Take a breath in as the hands come back together. Exhale on the other side. Keeping that going with the breath. Slow, controlled. Really trying to reach forward as you draw the elbow back. And again, just checking in with the hips. Or the knees. Good indication here is the knees. So if the knees are kind of going round, the hips are going round, and you're not really getting rotation up the spine, the hips and the shoulders are moving together as a unit, so you're not really getting any twist into the spine. So again, we're trying to keep the hips forward and planted, or even bringing in a little counter rotation. In fact, if you get the feel for that, so as your shoulders go one way, your hips kind of do a fraction of a twist in the opposite direction, and that feels good. Getting the rotation in the lower back and even in the thoracic area between the shoulders as well. One or two more. Again, making sure you've done the same on both sides, and then relax down. Now we're going to bring some lateral, we're going to bring some flexion and extension into the spine. I like to do this as a hip hinge, and I like to start with a nice wide stance. So take up that position, you should feel comfortable. Take a breath in, bring one hand onto your stomach, one onto your lower back. And on the exhale then, keeping the muscles at the back and the abs engaged, you're going to come down into a nice flat table. Breathe in as you cycle back up. And exhale back into that nice flat table. And I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see what I mean by nice flat table. So we're trying to keep head, back and neck all in alignment. So a little bit of a squeeze of the shoulder blades. And as you come down, everything is nice and flat. So you're not rounding into the spine, the head's not dropping down. It's nice and flat, everything is engaged. So you're waking up the muscles at the back in flexion and extension. You're also possibly working into the hamstrings. You might feel it in the hamstrings. So as you do this and the hamstrings warm up, you might be able to get a little bit further down each time. And once that eases, I'm just going to do a little routine just to kind of make it a little bit more working and stretching into the hamstrings. So from that first wide stance, you just heel toe in. And then do 3 or 4 more. Notice that as you start to do this now, you feel it a little bit more into your hamstrings. After 2 or 3, that starts to ease as you stretch and warm up into the thighs. And then when you're ready, heel toe in again. Do a couple more, and then heel toe in again. Until you arrive in your own time with your feet shoulder width apart. Because now we're going to take it into a little bit of a dynamic movement. We're going to take it into a bit of a compound movement in terms of a monkey squat or a box squat. So that same alignment of the head, back and neck, I want you to kind of imagine that you kind of been able to retain that as you go into this next exercise. So for a box squat, imagine you're sitting back on a box. Take a breath in, squeeze your glutes, engage the lower abs, roll your shoulders back and down. On the exhale, going to float the arms, it's just a bit of a counterbalance, but imagine the weight is sitting back, you're sitting down onto a box. Breathe in, as you come out, reset, shoulders, glutes, maybe tilt the pelvis under, squeeze your abs. Exhale into the squat. Breathe in as you recover, reset, exhale. I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see what I'm doing from the side with a couple of little cues. So you don't want the knees to track forward of the toes. And what I mean by that is, if you squat forward and the knees come forward, you're going to put pressure on your knees and it's hard to hold your posture in that position. Everything starts to round. So what we want to do is we want the weight to go back so the knees stay directly over the ankles or certainly behind the toes. So the weight goes back, you're sitting back on a box. The other thing that happens there is that there's temptation for the kind of tailbone to tuck out, to round into your lower back, creating a little bit of extension in your lower back, but unwanted in this exercise. So maybe just tilt your tailbone under slightly, really squeeze your glutes, squeeze your abs, take a breath in, and really trying to hold that engagement so the front part of your body is contained. The lower part of your back is nice and flat, it's not arching out. It's not arching out, the bun's not sticking out, everything's contained. Makes you work that little bit harder as you come into that exercise. Do one or two more. Really use the breath. And then relax down, bring the stance back into the middle, just checking in, allowing your breath to settle. Probably got the heart racing a little bit with that, and the whole body is now warmed up, ready to either take on your next part of your exercise, or maybe that's just it for today, just in terms of a gentle mobilisation.